It is peak hurricane season out here in the Atlantic. So what's going on? So we need to talk about some things, and that's what we're going to do. You know, there was a lot of talk on a tropical wave over the last several days that had quite literally a high chance of developing to a tropical depression or a next named storm, which would have been Gabrielle. In fact, me and many others thought this would become our next hurricane of the season. Well, fast forward to now, and it's just an area of showers and storms out here in the Atlantic. Not a big deal at all. So is there any other areas we're watching? We'll speak on that in this update this morning, and then we'll speak on an extended period of cooler weather. So if you're a fall weather fan, you'll like this. For the eastern U.S., we'll talk on that, and we'll round the video off with today's forecast. If you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And if anybody has anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put it in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling this morning. Let's make sure it's going to work, even though there's not really anything to really circle or note out here. But here it is, the entire Atlantic basin. It's quiet in the Gulf, the Caribbean, just some normal run-of-the-mill shower and storm activity indicated by the colors you see, these colder cloud tops, which tells us we have some stronger thunderstorms out here. We got a lot of convection, a lot of activity off the eastern seaboard, and this is because, or it's really ahead of a cold front that it's making its way across the eastern states and starting to move offshore across certain areas now. But the cool weather behind this cold front will really stick around, as we'll just have consistent low pressure off the coast of the eastern U.S. that will sort of funnel in just a consistent feed of dry, cooler weather. And we'll talk about that when we get a little bit deeper into this video. But anything else out there? We got this area of activity not expected to develop. Where's that tropical wave? Well, it's like right here. And yeah, I mean, not very impressive at all. So this is the entire big picture. There's nothing else really going on. We got to watch some wave activity coming off Africa. But, you know, model guidance has actually dropped off on that wave guidance also some too. So, you know, we spoke on a little bit in yesterday morning's video about maybe models trying to catch on to another tropical wave. Well, it's really backed off since then. So not a whole lot to speak on with that. But we'll continue to move forward here. And we'll look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Here it is, September 7th. And we got the graphic saying tropical cyclone activity is not expected during the next 7 days. This is not very common at all. We at least have an area of interest out here this time of the year, but we're not tracking nothing, and we're not even, we've kind of just restarted the process of even watching for any tropical activity. You know, we watch for it, we start to see a signal, and then the National Hurricane Center will dub an area of interest, and then we see if that develops. I mean, we're kind of at, you know, stage one right now, right? I mean, we're just kind of watching, but there's nothing really out there to talk a whole lot on. But I will say, in my opinion, okay, if there's any area to watch over the next 7-10 days, maybe inside that time frame, it's over the Gulf or off the coast of the Southeast. So why is that? Well, we got just kind of a stalled frontal boundary that'll sort of pivot north and south over the Southeast, and along that boundary you'll get shower and storm action. And if this hangs out over the open waters off the coast of the Southeast or northern Gulf for too long, it could gain some tropical characteristics, and the next thing you know, we got a depression or our next named storm, which is still Gabrielle, by the way. So we'll start us off Tuesday morning of this week, and we'll continue to move forward. You're going to see just a lot of activity, a lot of green, some splashes of yellow and orange and red off the coast of the Southeast, and we'll continue to move this forward. We get to the end of this coming work week, and we also got some activity hanging out down here in the Gulf in the Bay of Campeche, and we'll continue to move forward. And you know, about a week from today, it does try to develop a low pressure off the coast of the Southeast, and in fact, develops this into a quick tropical storm, makes landfall into the Carolinas. But listen, that's not a forecast. That's not me saying there's going to be a tropical storm. You know, what, a Monday or Tuesday, the 15th and the 16th, that's just a pattern. You just kind of look for a pattern here and see if eventually model guidance locks in and onto something. But we get about 10 days out, and all of a sudden you get a developing tropical cyclone here in the middle of the Gulf, and this spins around and then makes landfall in the Gulf coastline. But you know, regardless, this is so far out, we just kind of look at the pattern. Does it support what it's showing here? And I think it does. Does it scream a tropical system developing in these areas? Definitely doesn't scream it, but it definitely supports something like this. Now, I do think we need to just watch any kind of tropical wave activity that sort of survives just a hostile Atlantic. And what I mean by that is it's really dry out here. And it's been dry for the entire hurricane season so far. So just watching the activity that kind of gets out the tropical Atlantic, the main development region kind of in here, might try to develop into something real quick, but that's very far out. Now, what about the European model? Does it show anything? It shows some thunderstorm activity off the coast of Southeast and the Bahamas, a little bit in the in the Gulf here, but there it is popping off in low pressure here. It's kind of in the same time frame the GFS does, but it's not a big deal at all. And honestly, the Euro doesn't really show anything. It does try to bubble up a lot of energy in the Gulf, kind of around the same time the GFS does, I would say sometime next week. We'll say that next week, not this week out ahead of us, but next week. So we will watch for that. And sure enough, if you look over 300 hours out, it does try to develop some sort of low pressure. But, in general, there's nothing concerning. Now, we'll look at some other model runs here too, like the Icon, not the best model. But it does try to spin up some sort of weak low pressure off the coast of Southeast. And the pattern supports that. Like I said, just a lot of energy around, hanging out around that stalled boundary as you're just asking for homegrown activity, right? What about the Euro AI model, which has done well over the last couple weeks? If you hear a bird chirping out my window, there's one quite literally out my window right here. If you do notice any changes in my voice too, if it's deeper, kind of raspier, if you will. Went to a game last night that got delayed all the way into 9:30, the South Carolina State game, which was a snoozer, by the way. Not a great game at all for Gamecock fans. I stayed up. I was well past my bedtime. I don't think I went to bed until like 1:30 in the morning. So it's a sleepy morning for me here in the West household, but had to muscle it through, get up, make this video, and get to church. So can't miss church just because I stayed up late for a football game, right? But, same thing with the Euro AI model. Has some energy off the coast of the Southeast, but it just doesn't show anything worrisome or overly concerning or really a whole lot to talk about, to be honest. So Euro ensemble between now and the next 10 days doesn't really support this pattern at all. I'll just leave it at that. There's hardly no members on your screen. What about the GFS ensemble? We only have 150 hours out. It does show some members trying to develop off the coast of Southeast. And if you look at the model cycle from last night, does it show, is it a little bit more aggressive? Yeah, it is, for sure. And this is 10 days out. So the GFS and its ensembles likes the idea of some lower pressure developing in the Gulf or maybe off the coast of Southeast. There's many members kind of scattered about here. None of them are particularly strong, but it does like the idea of what we just discussed. Now, I would say regardless if anything tropical comes together, I think we're going to get a lot of rain, maybe right up against the Gulf coastline, the Southeast coastline. And since Florida sticks out like a sore thumb, it quite literally looks like it does, right? You guys are going to kind of extend out into a lot of moisture that's going to be hanging out. We're still just not at the time of the year where we get these cold fronts that drop all the way down to Florida, right? So the boundary is going to be north of y'all, which means y'all are south of it, which means y'all are just going to be stuck in the tropical, rainy pattern for the next week. So several inches of rain is forecast from the Weather Prediction Center for you guys. So expect a lot of rain over the next several days, maybe even extending further past this. But anyways, moving forward here, the global tropics hazard outlook does support what we just kind of talked about. From the 10th through the 16th, has a 20% chance in this area right here, in the red, white striped area, has a 20% chance of tropical development. It says, hey, watch a tropical wave out here too, which is the one we talked a lot on in yesterday morning's video. I still think that we need to watch. Model guidance could lock back in onto that. And then from the 17th to the 23rd, which I really think is when we work into a more favorable phase. It's been pushed back a little bit. Honestly, I thought that we would be working into that right now more so, but it's kind of slowed down, which is really what's driving Hurricane Kiko out in the Pacific, and it continues to thrive and be actually stronger at this point than what was forecast. But anyways, by the time we get to the 17th to the 23rd, the global tropics hazard outlook likes the idea of having a 40% chance of tropical development in this in this red area. So we'll continue to watch this. But overall, there's not a whole lot to talk on, and I don't know how I made 10 minutes out of that, but, I'm a big talker when it comes to the weather. But let's talk about an extended period of cooler, drier weather. Now, it's already been quite dry. Now, some people got a lot of rain yesterday. I saw more rain yesterday falling since mid-August. It was just nonstop for a few hours. But, these are dew points. These are not temperatures. Dew points is the best thing to look at this time of the year when trying to figure out if we're having a changing with the air mass. Okay, so this is Monday morning. Tomorrow morning, we got dew points sort of funneling in across the Carolinas and the North Georgia. Very, very dry air across the Midwest and the Ohio Valley and Mid-South. But watch what happens here. You sort of just continue as we get, and just your days are up here because I'm going to forget to mention them. But we get into Wednesday, we get into Thursday. We continue just to kind of get a funnel of dry air, kind of a dry air feed all the way down to the southeast. And I really think this is driven off a lot of low pressure off the coast of the southeast and the eastern U.S. that's sort of doing this. I'm going to draw something here. It's like it's doing this and then that and like that. So basically, the dry air to the north is sort of getting flowed down. So I think we'll just get a lot of northeasterly flow across the southeast. This will continue to sort of yank down dry air. And even though, this really isn't just a multiple cold fronts, it will feel like it is. And, of course, you guys look at your 10-day forecast across the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, and it looks phenomenal. And this is why. And, you get into Friday, look at these dew points still getting fed all the way down to the Gulf coastline to the 40s and 50s. Remember, dew points in the 40s and 50s is dry air and lower, right? It feels crisp outside. And you get in the 60s, it's a little bit more humid. You get in the 70s, it feels tropical type humidity. Just, you sweat within a few minutes of being outside. But, we get into the weekend, guys. We get into early next week, and it just continues. It's just dry air as far as the eye can see. So, of course, this is going to drive the lower temperatures. So between now and the next, let's honestly extend this 10 days. Between now and the next 10 days, this is basically the 10-day temperature anomaly map here. We got an extended period of anywhere from 2 to 3 degrees to, 6-7 degrees below average in this period. There'll be days where it'll be cooler. So what does this mean temperature-wise? Well, you got to know what your average temperature is for this time of the year. I think this map can confuse people. So, there's ways to find that. You can go to your local National Weather Service forecast. Honestly, sometimes when you look at the news, also, when you look at the news and they do the local weather report for your local area, a lot of times they'll put the average high and low temperature for that specific day, the time of the year. So, for example, in my house, if my average highs is in the upper 80s, then, here in Columbia, South Carolina, we're probably going to have days where the highs are only in the low 80s with low humidity, low temperatures in the low 60s, upper 50s. So, I know that's not that 70-degree crisp fall air mass, but for early September, it's wonderful. And I know I keep saying this, guys, but listen, I don't remember the last time in the South, where we've basically just flipped a light switch from summer to fall. Yeah, we did just have a few days of hot weather, but that's nothing compared to how bad it's been in the past. There's been sometimes, I remember 2018, for example, we didn't get really a cold front until October 10th or 11th. And then 2019, we had over 100-degree temperatures here in the central Midlands of South Carolina. So, there's been so many bad years with heat that's just extended. But it is probably going to warm up again at some point. I'm not saying we're completely done with the heat, but it's pretty wild. You look at the 6 to 10 day temperature forecast, and this is going out from the 12th to the 16th. So this is before the period out in front of us, right? if you live in these blue areas, this is where they're going for below average temperatures, a chance at below average temperatures. The middle of the country, it's going to start to heat up again. But we continue to just get this return flow across the eastern U.S. It's going to allow us to have a continuous feed of cooler, dry air. So as far as today's weather, we got a lot of moisture dancing around across southern areas of Texas. We got a steady stream of moisture that quite literally looks like it's just targeting the I-95 corridor from D.C. up to New York City, Long Island, southern New England. It is a nice, rainy, classic morning. I like a good rainy morning sometimes, depending on the day of the week. Sunday morning can, be tough. It'll give you an excuse to stay in the house when you need to get out and about. But, sometimes, you just need a morning where you just need to be slow. Like this morning is that morning for me because I'm tired. Southeast is pretty quiet, though. You can see what I'm talking about with all this energy out the coast. But outside of that, there is no active weather ongoing. Watches, warnings, and advisories. A few freeze warnings up there in northern Minnesota. We got dense fog advisories across the Mid-South into the Ohio Valley. And then you look at the risk of severe weather today. Watch eastern Colorado, areas of Nebraska, western Kansas into the panhandle of Oklahoma, Texas, and then areas of New Mexico. There's a marginal risk of severe weather here. It's not a big deal. Excessive rainfall, nothing to really talk about. The southeast today, cold front sort of in, you kind of have what we call a cold air damming setup. So the cold front's really slowing down, but some of that dry air is sort of funneling back in, a little bit of a cold air damming setup. But some thunderstorms will fire up along the Carolina coastline and Georgia all the way down to the Florida. Man, that bird is loud. Y'all probably don't even hear it, but I do, and it's such a distraction. But he or she's just chirping away, living her best life, so it's okay. But we get into this afternoon, this evening. We got numerous thunderstorms across Florida, just kind of jumping around. It's still just a summer-type pattern down here, and maybe some storms will get going later this evening across the Georgia-South Carolina border, but not a big deal for anybody at all. Steady stream of light rain, even some heavy areas of rain this morning across the I-95 corridor, and this will probably linger around until this afternoon, this evening. And honestly, it could just be a flat-out rainy day across areas of southern New England. You might not fully shake it until tomorrow when some real true dry air filters in. The south central U.S. will continue just to get some showers and storms down here in southern Texas, dancing around here. And some of these storms could be strong to severe across eastern Colorado and those other areas that have a marginal risk. But the HRRR model doesn't show anything impressive. It could wake up to an organized area of shower and storm activity across Kansas. The north central U.S., not a whole lot to speak on. It's just a quiet, cooler day. Enjoy your weather. And then the western U.S., it's same deal. Except when we get to this evening, some showers could pop up, but no active weather, just, rain. But the temperatures here, a nice cool Sunday across the upper Midwest. It'll feel like football weather. I know I got plenty of NFL football fans, and I'm a big football fan myself. You guys know I talk about this a lot, but I'm more of a college football fan. Believe it or not, when I was younger, like a kid, like middle school, I was actually more of an NFL fan than a college football fan. I was diehard Carolina Panthers fan, and I would not call myself a diehard Carolina Panther fan right now. What I consider a diehard fan is someone that literally watches just about every game, even if it's a cupcake game. They're gonna try to get to as many games as possible. And I just kind of lost that passion for the Carolina Panthers, but I'm trying to get back into it. Nothing really beats, getting home from church on a Sunday afternoon and, just sitting back on the couch and chilling and watching some football. And I need to do better personally, resting on Sunday, and I have a hard time doing that. It's tough for me. So, but anyways, a nice, cool fall-like day for a lot of areas. It's gonna feel like football, for sure. But the western U.S., it's definitely heating up out here, but nothing too crazy. Folks, that's all I got. Looks like I got under around the 20-minute mark. So, it honestly looked like we were entering a pretty active period a couple days ago. And now, not so much. But hey, I do want to ask for prayers for myself. Here in about a day or two. YouTube finalized this stuff for the month prior. And for people who's been watching my channel for a while, they know what happened last year with my channel with the, with the invalid traffic stuff. It is what it is. You get past it, and if you're listening, you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, man. Well, channel got hit with invalid traffic, and it was really nothing that I did or anything like that. It happens to a lot of YouTube channels, and they took. I'll just keep it real. They took a lot of revenue away from my channel from a period between September and October, basically covering Helene and Milton, those hurricanes last year. They took about 90% of my revenue from covering those storms, and it's I spent a lot of time, putting in a lot of effort covering that stuff, and it stunk. But I had to remember people were going through some awful things, and really what I was going through did not even compare to what other people were going through, what Helene did to their life. So it was a perspective-like thing, and got past it. But it's happened 2 hurricane seasons in a row where my channel's been kind of wrongly flagged, in my opinion. I haven't gotten any notifications the last 2 times it's happened. The only 2 times it's happened, I have gotten notifications, but I haven't had anything like that. Had a very successful August, had a lot of growth on the channel, and it was awesome. Most of it came from covering Aaron, but a lot of growth on the channel. And I'll find out in about a day or two, maybe sometime this afternoon, if everything's good. So, giving it to God, either way, it'll be okay. But everything looks fine right now. So just asking for prayers that, whatever happens, it'll be all right. I know it will be all right, but, mentally, can get past it. I think it'll be okay. But if some people are probably watching this part of the video like, dude, I don't even know what you're talking about, man. But the regulars know what happened last year. So you know what I'm talking about. But anyways, God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful Sunday, and we'll do it again tomorrow morning. God bless.